Hey guys, I'm Caleb Giddings for Taurus USA, and today we are talking about EDC. What is EDC? It's not EDM, which is electronic dance music, and I think also a manufacturing technique. EDC is everyday carry, and it's shorthand for the things that you take with you as you go through your day to day life. And it's a very popular subject both in and outside of the firearms community. There's a whole Reddit subforum dedicated to people's EDC items. And every time I go on it, I always feel like some things are missing. And it's because most people's daily carry items consist of, if they're a guy, their wallet, their car keys, and their phone. Maybe you have a pair of sunglasses. Maybe if you're a guy, you have a small pocket knife. Because I'll be very honest, while all of the women I know carry pocket knives, most of the women I know are also in the firearms industry. So I think that's sort of a bit of selection bias in terms of women who carry knives. I don't think I've ever seen on a date when I was single a girl with a pocket knife, but I'd have to really think about that. But anyway, why do we talk about EDC? Well, there's a lot of content creators and there are a lot of people who say, oh, here's my EDC loadout. And then they throw down this preposterous amount of gear on the table and then insist that if you're not carrying the same amount of gear that they're carrying, that you are somehow ill prepared to go through your daily life. And sometimes people will even stage EDC videos where they put all the gear on before the video and claim that it's their EDC, and then they take all of that off before they go out into their day-to-day life. And as someone who's been carrying a gun basically every day since I was legally allowed to, I get frustrated by that because that doesn't present a real image of what real everyday carry looks like. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm actually going to take you through my EDC. And you'll never be able to ask them, but the camera crew that's standing here filming me has been watching me since I've walked through this door. And I am wearing all of the stuff that I put on this morning when I got into my car to drive here. I haven't staged anything. I haven't set anything up. So we're going to roll through all of the stuff that I carry on my body as my EDC and the reasons why I carry it. And we're going to start with what I think is the most important and most valuable self-defense tool that you can get, a can of pepper spray. Pepper spray is incredibly useful. This is a palm pepper spray. It has a handy little pocket clip. I have 3 of these in case the pocket clip ever breaks off or something like that. I consider them disposable items. I'm not too worried about longevity with one of these. But pepper spray is an incredibly useful EDC tool because what it does, to steal a line from my friend Chuck Haggard, is it gives me a level of force in between harsh words and a gun. Pepper spray is actually a lower level of force than punching someone in the face. Think about it. If I get into a physical altercation with another human being and I have to strike them with my hands, elbows, knees, or something like that, or I use some sort of control technique to escort them to the ground, they'll get scuffed up. They will get physical marks on their face or body. And then the next day, if they feel some kind of way about it, they can go to the police and say, so-and-so assaulted me. Here is the mark on my face. Pepper spray doesn't do any of that. If you spray someone with pepper spray, the next day, they might have a slightly red face. It is a lower level of force than you would see from physical strikes, and obviously a much lower level of force than deadly force. Another advantage to pepper spray is that for civilians, not law enforcement officers, but civilians, it provides us with an escape and evasion tactic. One of the disadvantages to pepper spray from a law enforcement perspective is that if you pepper spray someone, you will get cross-contaminated because at some point you're probably going to have to go hands-on with that person and arrest them, wrestle them to the ground, put them in a police car, something like that. Not so with civilian pepper spray use. The ideal envelope for a civilian pepper spray encounter is to spray down the bad person who is doing the bad thing and then run. The pepper spray creates a reactionary gap where you can evade whatever problem that was if that's the best thing to do. It's not a perfect solution, but I will tell you what, there have been plenty of situations where all I have been carrying is a can of pepper spray and my phone, and I have not felt underprepared for whatever the world may throw at me. Now we're going to talk about another thing that I carry every day, which is technically deadly force, although I don't really view it as that because this is not what I use this for. But I do carry a pocket knife. This is my personal Microtech. Sadly, this is a discontinued model, which is a real shame because it's one of my favorite knives. It's obviously been beat up. I've been carrying this knife every day for almost 5 years. I love the Microtech knives because, if I'm going to be really honest, this is a fidget spinner for a 42-year-old man. I love doing that. It's fantastic. Now, it is a really lovely knife. It's a great tool. But for me, this is a knife that I use for just knife stuff. I open boxes with this. I've cut fruit with it. I've done regular knife things that you might need a knife for during the course of your day-to-day life. There's nothing that frustrates me more when I'm watching a YouTube video or an Instagram video or something like that, and I see someone have to open a package and they rip out their keys and they start sawing at it or they're gnawing at it like there's some sort of woodchuck. Get a good pocket knife. You are an adult. The reason why I'm so passionate about carrying a good pocket knife, and again, it doesn't have to be something like this $300 Microtech. A good Swiss Army knife is a good pocket knife. The whole reason I care so much about knives, though, is that the thing that has made humans the dominant species on this planet is our ability to use tools. So if you're opening your Amazon packages with your teeth or your car keys, go get a good pocket knife. Get a Spyderco, get a Swiss Army knife. There's so many great options out there, and it's just a useful thing to have. I guarantee that if you are not a knife person, well, let's be real. If you're not a knife person, you're probably not watching this video. But if by some chance you found this EDC video and you're not a knife person and you go and get a pocket knife, you're going to find a whole bunch of things that that pocket knife is really useful for in your day-to-day life that you didn't realize, oh, wow, I wish I'd had a pocket knife for this all this time. So please, get a good pocket knife. Now, speaking of knives, we will now move on to the other knife that I carry, which is not for opening packages. This is a clinch pick. So the reason why I carry this knife and the location where I carry this knife is entirely for personal protection. It's carried on the left side of my body with the point up and the butt down. That way I can grab it either with my dominant hand or with my left hand to pull it out in a self-defense situation. I did not used to carry a small fixed blade knife like this until I took Craig Douglas's Extreme Close Quarters Concepts course. And then as I was sitting on my back with someone in full mount punching me in the face and taking my gun away from me so they could shoot me in the head, I thought, gee, it'd really be nice if I had something I could stab this guy with right now to get him off of me. After that, I started carrying one of these knives. The clinch pick and many other knives like it are designed for that extreme close quarters encounter. This isn't something that you're going to get into a Hollywood-style knife fight with, like in the original Under Siege movie. And if you haven't seen that movie, go look up the knife fight with Tommy Lee Jones and Steven Seagal. It's the most ridiculous thing you'll ever see. But anyway, that's not what this knife is for. This knife is for personal protection in a very specific format. I use a Darkstar Gear scabbard on it, which allows the knife to be properly positioned again right here on my belt, right at my waistline, so I can grab it either with my right hand or I can grab it with my left hand. This particular model of knife has a unique modification from a lot of other knives that you would see for personal protection, and that's that it has a reverse edge. The sharp edge is on the top. This bottom edge is entirely dull. I can run my finger back and forth on this and I'll never get cut. And the point for a knife like this is that when I draw from this appendix position, the idea is that you stab and cut up. This isn't a pretty thing to talk about, but we're talking about defending ourselves in a life-threatening incident, and I'm a big fan of this reverse edge clinch pick right here. It is a wicked little knife. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about is the thing that most people are watching this video for, and that's what kind of gun is he carrying? What kind of gun, what kind of holster, all of this and all of that. And you guys should probably have guessed by now if you've seen any of the thousands of videos that I've done that I'm carrying a revolver. And if you did guess that, you would have guessed correctly. I've carried a revolver as my primary EDC for the better part of 10 years now. And one of the coolest things about working for Taurus USA is I get to carry some very cool revolvers and I get some very cool holsters for them. This is my personal Taurus 856 executive grade. We're going to go ahead and unload this in a safe direction and talk about this gun for a minute. This is a gun that I've talked about a lot. It is a 6-shot, 38 special, double action only, 3-inch revolver with a steel frame. I have swapped the grips out for these Pachmayr grips because they give me the opportunity to not only fill the bottom part of my hand, but I can also get really good what's called north-south pressure on the grip. North-south pressure means that the front of my hand goes around the front, but there's enough room on the back strap that the support hand can actually come all the way around and also place pressure on the back strap. That means if I'm shooting this gun fast, I have way better recoil control because I have more hand on the gun. Other than changing the grips and painting the front sight orange so I can see it a little bit better, I have done no modifications to this gun, and it has well over 1,500 rounds on it. 1,500 rounds isn't a lot for a competition gun, but for a concealed carry gun, I have been extremely happy with the performance. We'll talk here about the holster. This is the Filster City Special holster for the Taurus 856. This holster wouldn't exist if I didn't have this job and I wasn't friends with the people at Filster. I'll be very straightforward about that. But it is, in my opinion, the best appendix carry holster out there for the 856 series of revolvers. It's also available on their Enigma chassis, which allows you to carry a gun in a holster without needing a belt and belt loops. And you can go look that up on the Filster website. The next thing we're going to talk about is ammo, because gun nerds love talking about ammo. Caleb, what kind of ammo do you carry in your 856? Well, I'm so glad you asked, random internet person. I carry 120 grain Federal Punch. This round was specifically developed by Federal for snub-nosed revolvers, and in ballistic tests, it actually penetrates appropriately for what you would want to see a defensive round get, 12 to 16 inches in ballistics gel after defeating clothing, and because of the design of the punch bullet, you do actually get expansion. That's unusual for 38 special revolvers, but out of this 3-inch barrel, I have never seen it not expand when fired into ballistics gel, even after defeating clothing barriers. Now we'll get to the last thing that's part of my EDC, and it's the least important thing, but it's something that people do care about, and that's, do I carry a reload? And the answer to that is yes, I do. I have 6 more rounds of 120 grain punch in an 8-shot quick strip by Tough Products. The reason why I use an 8-shot quick strip is so that I can grab it out of my pocket and I can load the cylinder 2 rounds at a time. If I wanted to, and I thought, hey, I only need 2 rounds to get back into this fight, I can just break 2 rounds off, index the cylinder, and have 2 up and ready to go. Or I can reload the gun with a full 6 rounds if necessary. The thing that makes this quick strip really great, as far as I'm concerned, is that we also use the Neomag Rask. The Neomag Rask attaches to the tongue of the quick strip, and then it allows me to put it in a pocket and clip it into place so that it's always in the same spot every time, so that when I grab it out of my pocket, it presents itself exactly the way I would want it to be oriented for a reload. Now, I have some other EDC items like my wallet and my phone. You don't need to see those. Everyone has a wallet and a phone. And the last thing that we will talk about here is, what about medical? A lot of people say that you should carry medical on body, and if you have made that choice, there are other people who are smarter than me that can talk about the best ways to do that. I don't carry medical gear on body, but I do keep a med kit in all of the vehicles that I own, and it's a fairly comprehensive one. I want to be able to treat everything from a scratch and a boo-boo all the way up to traumatic bleeding, amputations, that kind of stuff. So I get a pretty good med kit, and I put one in each of my vehicles. I also keep a copy of that med kit in my range bag so that when I am out on the range, I have medical gear immediately available if something bad were to happen to me or a training partner. And that's it. That's EDC. All of this stuff is real world stuff. I walked into the studio today wearing and carrying all of this stuff. And when I cut this video, I'm going to put all of this stuff back on my body and go about my day-to-day life. The most important thing about EDC, and the biggest thing that I think you should take, or the biggest thing that I hope you take away from this video, is that this setup here is the Caleb Giddings setup. This doesn't have to be your setup. If you look at this and you go, I think he's crazy because he carries a fixed blade knife, or I don't need pepper spray. Well, I'd actually argue with you about the pepper spray one. You should be carrying pepper spray. But this doesn't have to be your setup. This is a way that I have discovered that allows me to live my life and feel adequately prepared for the threats that I believe are reasonable for me to encounter in my day-to-day life. If I lived in a different area, I tell you, when I lived in South Florida, I didn't always carry a small frame revolver. Sometimes I carried a much bigger gun. But the point with EDC is not to look at someone else's setup and go, oh, how can I copycat that setup? Because obviously it works so well for Caleb at 5'6" and 170 pounds. What can I do to make mine more like that? But the idea instead is to look at this setup and go, oh, I like this idea. I like that idea. I've never heard of the Filster holsters. Let me try one of those, see if it helps me conceal better. So look at this, take what you need from it, and use this and these ideas to help build your own EDC that is both realistic and practical.